Mm, the scent of betrayal. And it smells like your end.
The cologne wasn't mine. I found it wedged between the dryer and the wall like a guilty secret, still warm from the cycle. Armani code. The bottle was half empty, which meant it had been there long enough to matter. My wife Lauren didn't wear men's cologne, and I sure as heck didn't own anything that cost more than my monthly coffee budget. Standing in our laundry room at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, holding evidence of my wife's affair, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, that would come later. This was calculation. The same methodical calm that made me good at debugging code now focused on debugging my marriage. Lauren was upstairs, probably still asleep after her late yoga session with Ethan Clark. Her gym buddy, her personal trainer, the guy who'd been helping her find herself for the past 4 months. I pocketed the cologne and started the coffee maker. Time to play dumb for a while longer. "Morning, babe," Lauren said, patting into the kitchen in her silk robe. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of that same cologne on her skin. Subtle, but there. "You're up early?" "Client call with Tokyo," I lied smoothly. "How was yoga last night?" "Intense." She poured herself coffee, not meeting my eyes. "Ethan really pushed us through some advanced poses." Ethan. She said his name like it was honey on her tongue. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her, demand the truth. Instead, I nodded and buttered my toast. "Sounds challenging." "Yeah, well," she shrugged, already losing interest in the conversation. "He knows what he's doing." "I bet he does." Lauren worked at a marketing firm downtown, the kind of place where everyone dressed better than they could afford and called each other rock stars, unironically. She'd been there 3 years, climbing the social ladder with the same determination she'd once applied to our relationship. Back when we were happy, back when she looked at me the way she now looked at her phone when it buzzed, which it did, right on cue. "Who's texting you at 7 in the morning?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Jill." She was already typing back, fingers flying. "She's having drama with her ex again." Jill Myers, Lauren's best friend since college, the one who'd been mysteriously absent from our dinner parties lately, the one who'd started giving me strange looks when we ran into each other at the grocery store. "Tell her I said hi," I said. Lauren's typing paused for just a fraction of a second. "Will do." But she wouldn't, because Jill probably knew about Ethan, and Lauren couldn't risk any awkward questions. I was starting to understand the architecture of deception, how lies required supporting walls and careful engineering. I finished my coffee and kissed Lauren goodbye, just like every other morning. She smelled like expensive shampoo and betrayal. "Have a good day," she said, already scrolling through her phone. "You too." I drove to work through Camden Hill's perfectly manicured streets, past houses that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd never lived in one. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where people moved to feel successful, where the lawns were always green and the secrets were always buried deep. My office was downtown, in a glass tower that reflected the morning sky like a mirror. I worked for a tech company that made software for insurance companies, the kind of job that paid well and slowly ended your soul. I'd been there 8 years, long enough to have my own office with a view of the parking garage. But today, I couldn't focus on code. I kept thinking about that cologne bottle, about Lauren's evasive eyes, about the way she'd been working late more often, about how she'd started hitting the gym with religious dedication, buying new clothes, taking longer showers. The signs had been there for months. I'd just chosen to ignore them. My phone buzzed, a text from Lauren. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She could wait for an answer. Around noon, I called my brother Jake. He ran a mixed martial arts gym on the other side of town, the kind of place where people went to hit things legally. Jake had been the troublemaker in our family growing up, the one who'd spent his teens in and out of juvenile detention, but he'd cleaned up his act in his 20s, channeling his aggression into something productive. "What's up, Nick?" he answered on the second ring. "Want to grab lunch?" "Sure, everything okay, you sound weird. Just need to talk." We met at a diner that hadn't changed its decor since 1987. Jake ordered a burger that could have fed a small family. I picked at a salad and told him about the cologne. "So she's cheating," he said, stating the obvious. "What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet." Jake studied me with the kind of intensity that had made him good at reading opponents in the ring. "You're not going to just take it, are you?" "No." The word came out harder than I'd intended. I'm not. Good. He took a massive bite of his burger. Because the old Nick would have just rolled over and taken it. But you're not that guy anymore, are you? I thought about that question for the rest of the day. Who was I now? The betrayed husband who pretended not to notice, or someone else entirely? That evening, I got home before Lauren for once. I had maybe 30 minutes before she returned from her late meeting. I used the time to search our bedroom with the methodical thoroughness of a crime scene investigator. I found the burner phone in her jewelry box, hidden behind a necklace I'd given her for our anniversary, the one she never wore anymore. The phone had maybe a dozen contacts, but only one that mattered: E. The text thread was a masterpiece of modern adultery, months of messages, starting innocent enough but quickly escalating. Meeting times, hotel names, detailed descriptions of what they wanted to do to each other, and complaints about me. "He's so boring," Lauren had written just 3 days ago. "All he does is work and watch Netflix. I feel like I'm dying inside." "You deserve better," Ethan had replied. "Someone who appreciates you." "I know, I just don't know how to leave him. He'd be so hurt." "You can't live your life for other people, babe. You have to do what makes you happy." Babe. The pet name she'd stopped using for me months ago. I photographed the most damning messages, then put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. By the time Lauren's key turned in the lock, I was on the couch watching television, looking like the boring husband she'd described. "Hey," she said, dropping her purse by the door. "How was your day?" "Fine. You?" "Exhausting. I need a shower." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard the water running. I wondered if she was washing off the scent of another man, erasing the evidence of her afternoon. The thought made my jaw clench. When she came back down, she was wearing one of my old college t-shirts and pajama pants. She looked young and innocent, like the girl I'd married 6 years ago, before the mortgage and the social climbing and the slow death of whatever we'd once had. "Want to watch a movie?" she asked, settling onto the couch beside me. "Sure." We sat in comfortable silence, her head on my shoulder like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I was just better at hiding it than she was. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Claire Clark. Can we talk?" Claire, Ethan's wife, the woman who had no idea her husband was screwing my wife in hotel rooms downtown. I excused myself to the bathroom and called her back. "I know this is weird," she said without preamble, "but I found your number in Ethan's phone. I think our spouses are having an affair." Claire's voice was shaky but determined. She'd done her own detective work, found the same breadcrumbs I had. Hotel receipts, unexplained absences. The cologne I'd found in my laundry room had come from her bathroom cabinet. "When can we meet?" I asked. "Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Maple Street, noon." "I'll be there." Lauren was still on the couch when I returned, absorbed in some romantic comedy about people who communicated better than we did. I sat beside her and tried to focus on the screen, but all I could think about was tomorrow's meeting. The next day, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I spent the morning researching divorce lawyers and private investigators, printing out the photos I'd taken of Lauren's phone. By the time I walked into the coffee shop, I had a plan forming. Claire was already there, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a mug like she was trying to warm herself from the inside out. She was prettier than I'd expected, with dark hair and tired eyes that reminded me of myself. "Nick?" she asked when I approached. "That's me." I sat down across from her, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Two people whose lives had been imploded by the same bomb. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About a week. You?" 3 days, she laughed bitterly. "I was doing laundry and found hotel receipts in his pocket. The Marriott downtown. They've been meeting there twice a week for the past month." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" She studied my face. "You don't look sorry. You look angry." She was right. I was angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life, but it was a cold, focused anger, the kind that got things done. "What do you want to do about it?" I asked. "I want to destroy them." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Claire's eyes were bright with unshed tears and something else, something harder. "Define destroy," I said. "I want them to hurt the way they hurt us. I want them to lose everything they care about. I want them to understand that actions have consequences." I liked Claire. I liked her a lot. "I might have some ideas," I said. We talked for 2 hours, sharing information and building trust. Claire was a paralegal, which meant she understood the legal boundaries of revenge. She also had access to Ethan's financial records, his business partnerships, his carefully constructed life. The gym is everything to him, she said. He's got investors, a reputation. If that fell apart, he'd be devastated. Lauren cares about her social standing more than anything. Her job, her friends, her image. If that crumbled, she'd have nothing left. Nothing but the truth. We shook hands in the parking lot like we were sealing a business deal, which in a way, we were, the business of justice. That evening, Lauren announced she was going on a weekend yoga retreat with her girls. 2 days in the mountains, unplugged from technology, finding inner peace. Sounds great, I said. I might visit Jake, do some guy stuff. Perfect. She kissed my cheek, and I caught that cologne scent again. We both need some time to recharge. I waited until she'd gone upstairs to pack, then texted Claire. It's happening this weekend. Her response came back immediately. Good. I'm ready. Friday morning, Lauren left for her fake retreat with 2 suitcases and enough excitement to power a small city. I watched her drive away, then called Jake. Remember that thing we talked about? I said. I need your help. What kind of help? The legal kind, mostly. Jake's laugh was low and dangerous. I'll be right over. While I waited for my brother, I made a few phone calls. The first was to a private investigator Claire had recommended. The second was to a graphic designer who specialized in, shall we say, unconventional projects. The third was to a contact from my college days who now worked in digital marketing. By the time Jake arrived, I had the framework of a plan that would have impressed Sun Tzu. You look different, Jake said, studying my face. Focused. I feel different. Good. So what's the play? I explained the situation, showed him the evidence, outlined my strategy. Jake listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. This is some serious psychological warfare, he said finally. You sure you want to go down this road? They started it. I'm just finishing it. Okay then, he cracked his knuckles. Let's go to war. The first phase of the plan was information gathering. While Lauren was supposedly finding her chakras, Claire and I were documenting every aspect of the affair. The private investigator I'd hired was already at the hotel, camera ready. By Sunday evening, we'd have enough evidence to bury them both. But evidence was just the beginning. Phase 2 was more creative. Jake and I spent Saturday morning at his gym, working out and discussing strategy. It felt good to hit things, to channel my rage into something physical. I was in better shape than I'd been in years, anger apparently being an excellent personal trainer. You know what your problem is? Jake said as I pounded the heavy bag. You're too nice. You always have been. Remember in high school when Tommy Reichert used to pick on you? Yeah. You never fought back, just took it until I stepped in. This is different, is it? He held the bag steady as I threw a combination. Seems like the same pattern to me. Someone hurts you, you absorb it, then you plan their destruction from the shadows. He wasn't wrong, but this time I wasn't going to let anyone else fight my battles. Maybe, I said, but this time I'm going to win. Sunday evening, Lauren returned from her retreat, glowing with fake serenity and real satisfaction. She hugged me like she'd missed me, told me about the meditation sessions and organic food and spiritual connections she'd supposedly experienced. It was exactly what I needed, she said. I feel so centered. You look great, I said, and meant it. Adultery apparently agreed with her. How was your weekend with Jake? Enlightening. That night, as Lauren slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the photos sitting on my computer. Images of my wife and her lover entering a hotel room, emerging hours later with the satisfied look of people who'd gotten exactly what they wanted. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Monday morning, I kissed Lauren goodbye and drove to work like always. But instead of going to my office, I met Claire at a restaurant across town. She looked tired but determined, the kind of exhaustion that came from making difficult decisions. I have something for you, she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Inside were financial records, business documents, and several photographs of Ethan with various women who weren't his wife. Apparently, Lauren wasn't his only extracurricular activity. He's been busier than we thought, Claire said. The gym's books show payments to at least 3 different women over the past year. I think he's been using business expenses to fund his hobbies. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Tax fraud, misappropriation of funds. His business partners would be very interested to know where their money's been going. I studied the documents with growing admiration for Claire's thoroughness. She'd built a case that would destroy Ethan's business, his reputation, and his marriage all in one devastating blow. "This is brilliant," I said. "I learned from the best lawyers in the city. They taught me that revenge is just another word for justice with better documentation." Tuesday morning, I implemented phase 3 of the plan. Using the graphic designer's work, I created a series of fake advertisements featuring Ethan's photo and some very unflattering services. The ads were professional-looking enough to seem real, ridiculous enough to be memorable. By Wednesday, they were posted on every community bulletin board in a 20-mile radius. The gym's phone started ringing with confused inquiries about services they definitely didn't offer. "Nick," Lauren said that evening, "have you heard anything weird about Ethan's gym?" "No. Why?" "Jill mentioned something about prank calls, people asking about unusual services." I shrugged. "Kids, probably. You know how they are." But Lauren looked troubled. For the first time since this started, she seemed to be questioning her perfect little world. Thursday brought phase 4. The private investigator delivered a package containing hours of video footage from the hotel. Lauren and Ethan entering and leaving, looking guilty and satisfied in equal measure. The timestamps lined up perfectly with her claimed yoga sessions. I edited the footage into a highlight reel set to music that made the whole thing look like a cheesy romantic movie. Then I uploaded it to a private video sharing site and sent the link to Claire. "This is devastating," she texted back. "When do we deploy it?" "Soon. I want to build up the pressure first." Friday morning, Lauren was agitated. She paced around the kitchen, checking her phone constantly, jumping at every sound. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Ethan's been getting weird calls at the gym. Anonymous tips about health code violations. The city inspectors showed up yesterday." "That's terrible. And someone's been leaving bad reviews online, completely fake ones about things that never happened." I made sympathetic noises while internally celebrating. The anonymous tips had been my idea, submitted through various fake accounts, with just enough legitimate concerns to trigger an investigation. "I'm sure it'll blow over," I said. "These things usually do." But Lauren didn't look convinced. She was starting to understand that actions had consequences, that secrets couldn't stay buried forever. That evening, she got a call from Jill. They talked for an hour in hushed tones, Lauren's voice getting more agitated as the conversation progressed. "What's wrong?" I asked when she hung up. "Jill's been hearing rumors. People are saying things about Ethan, about his business practices." "What kind of things?" "Financial irregularities, inappropriate behavior with clients. It's probably nothing, but what if it's not?" I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. For the first time, she was questioning the man she'd been ready to leave me for. The perfect personal trainer who was supposed to be her escape from boring old Nick. "I'm sure it's just gossip," I said. "You know how people talk." But the damage was done. Lauren spent the weekend distracted and anxious, checking her phone constantly for messages that weren't coming. Ethan was probably too busy dealing with investigators and angry investors to maintain his usual charm offensive. Monday morning brought the breakthrough I'd been waiting for. Claire called with news that made my chest tight with satisfaction. "The health department found violations," she said. "Equipment wasn't properly maintained. Certification documents were expired. They're shutting down the gym pending a full investigation." "And his business partners?" "Furious. They're talking about pulling their investment. Ethan's trying to blame it on a disgruntled employee, but nobody's buying it." "Perfect. How's he handling it?" "Badly. He's been calling and texting all morning, begging me to come home. Says he can explain everything." "Are you going to—" "Not a chance. I've got a better idea." Claire's idea was beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of confronting Ethan directly, she was going to let him destroy himself. She'd moved out of their house and filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. But she'd also sent copies of his financial records to his business partners, his gym's parent company, and the IRS. "Legal, devastating, and completely justified," she said. "He'll spend the next decade explaining where the money went." While Claire was dismantling Ethan's life with surgical precision, I was preparing for Lauren's downfall. The video footage was ready, the evidence was compiled, and I had a plan that would expose her to everyone who mattered. But first, I wanted to watch her squirm a little longer. That evening, Lauren got a call from Ethan. I could hear his voice through the phone, panicked and desperate. Lauren took the call in the other room, but I could hear fragments of the conversation. "Don't understand how this happened. Someone's targeting me." Need to be careful. When she came back, her face was pale. Ethan's gym is closed, she said. Health department violations. That's awful. Is he okay? I don't know. He sounded scared. For the first time in months, I almost felt sorry for my wife. Almost. But then I remembered the texts, the lies, the casual way she dismissed our marriage as boring. The sympathy evaporated like morning mist. I'm sure he'll figure it out, I said. He seems like a resourceful guy. Tuesday brought new developments. The local newspaper ran a story about the gym's closure, complete with interviews from disgruntled clients and former employees. The reporter had clearly done their homework, painting a picture of a business built on deception and corner cutting. Lauren read the article 3 times, her face growing more troubled with each pass. This makes it sound like Ethan's some kind of criminal, she said. Media always exaggerates, I replied. You know how they are. But the seed of doubt was planted. Lauren started questioning things she'd taken for granted. Ethan's stories about his business success, his claims about helping people, his promises about their future together. Wednesday brought the coup de grace. Claire called with the news I'd been waiting for. It's done, she said. Ethan's business license has been revoked. His partners are suing him for fraud. The IRS is opening an investigation. And personally, he's been served with divorce papers. I'm taking half of everything, including his stake in the gym, or what's left of it. How's he taking it? He showed up at my sister's house last night, drunk and ranting about conspiracies. The police had to escort him away. The mental image of Ethan, the confident personal trainer who'd stolen my wife, reduced to a drunken mess, pleading with his estranged wife, filled me with dark satisfaction. One down, I said. One to go. That evening, Lauren was unusually quiet. She picked at her dinner, checked her phone constantly, and flinched at every sound. The confident woman who'd been planning to leave me was crumbling before my eyes. You seem stressed, I said. It's nothing, just work stuff. But it wasn't work stuff. It was the slow realization that the man she'd bet her future on was a fraud, that her perfect escape plan had been built on lies. Want to talk about it? No, I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She was terrified, and tomorrow she'd have good reason to be. Thursday morning, I put Phase 5 into motion. Using a network of fake social media accounts I'd created over the past weeks, I began circulating rumors about Lauren's affair. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be traced back to me, just whispers and suggestions, the kind of social media poison that spread through suburban communities like wildfire. Did you hear about Lauren Granger? I always wondered about her and that personal trainer. No wonder Nick's been looking so stressed lately. By afternoon, the whispers had reached critical mass. Lauren came home from work looking shell-shocked. People are talking, she said. About what? About me and Ethan. Someone's spreading rumors. I arranged my face into an expression of concerned confusion. What kind of rumors? That we've been... She couldn't finish the sentence. That's ridiculous. Who would say something like that? I don't know, but it's everywhere. Social media, the office, even the grocery store clerk looked at me funny. The beautiful thing about rumors was that they took on a life of their own. People filled in the gaps with their own assumptions, their own observations. Lauren's long work hours, her new gym obsession, her sudden interest in expensive clothes. It all made sense now. I'm sure it'll blow over, I said. These things always do. But Lauren knew better. In a community like Camden Hills, reputation was everything. Once people started talking, they never stopped. Friday brought the final piece of the puzzle. The private investigator delivered a package containing printed photos of Lauren and Ethan together, not just entering and leaving the hotel, but holding hands, kissing, looking at each other with the kind of intensity that left no doubt about their relationship. I spread the photos across my desk and studied them with clinical detachment. This was my wife, the woman I'd pledged to love and honor, betraying everything we'd built together. The woman who'd convinced me I was boring, that I wasn't enough, that she deserved better. She was about to discover what she actually deserved. Saturday morning, Lauren announced she was going to the gym. Her voice was strained, her movements nervous. She needed to see Ethan, to understand what was happening to their carefully constructed fantasy. Have a good workout, I said. She left the house looking like she was going to a funeral. In a way, she was. I spent the morning making final preparations. The video was edited and ready. The photos were organized and labeled. The evidence was compiled into a presentation that would leave no room for doubt or denial. By the time Lauren returned, I was ready. She came through the door looking defeated. Her face was red from crying, her hair disheveled, her clothes wrinkled like she'd been grabbing at them in desperation. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Ethan's gone." "Gone?" "He left town, packed up and disappeared. His phone's disconnected, his apartment's empty. It's like he never existed." I felt a stab of disappointment. I'd wanted to confront Ethan myself, to look him in the eye when his world collapsed. But this was better. He'd run away like a coward, leaving Lauren to face the consequences alone. "I'm sorry," I said. "That must be hard." "Hard?" She laughed bitterly. "It's over. Everything's over." "What do you mean?" "My job, my reputation, my friends. Everyone knows. Everyone's talking. I can't go anywhere without people staring and whispering." "Maybe it's time we had a talk." Something in my tone made her look at me sharply. For the first time in months, she was really seeing me. Not the boring husband she'd dismissed, but the man who'd been watching and planning and waiting. "Nick?" "Sit down, Lauren." She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could see the fear in her eyes, the growing realization that something fundamental had changed. "I know about Ethan," I said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lauren's face went white, then red, then white again. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." I walked to my desk and picked up the manila envelope containing the photos. Lauren's eyes followed my movements like a trapped animal watching a predator. "I know about the hotel, the lies, the fake yoga retreats, the burner phone in your jewelry box. Nick, I can explain." "No." I held up a hand. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. No story that justifies what you did." I opened the envelope and spread the photos across the coffee table. Lauren stared at them with growing horror, seeing herself through my eyes for the first time. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "Long enough. Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to be sure. I wanted to understand exactly what kind of person I married." Lauren's composure cracked. She started crying, not the pretty tears of a wronged woman, but the ugly sobs of someone who'd been caught in a lie too big to escape. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. It didn't mean anything. It was just what? Just closeness? Just fun? Just a way to feel better about yourself?" I felt trapped in this house, in this marriage, in this life. I felt like I was disappearing. "So you decided to disappear me instead?" "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it? You were planning to leave me for him. Don't deny it. I read your texts." Lauren's face crumpled. "Yes, I was going to leave you, but not because I didn't love you, because I didn't love myself. Save the psychology. I'm not interested in your motivations." "Then what do you want?" I sat down across from her, close enough to see the fear in her eyes. "I want you to understand what you've lost." "I know what I've lost. I've lost everything." "No, you've lost what you thought you had. You never had anything real to begin with." I reached for another envelope, this one containing the financial documents I prepared. "You remember the prenup you signed?" Lauren's face went pale. "Nick, please." "Section 7, subsection 3. Infidelity clause. You get nothing." "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious. The house, the car, the savings account, all mine. You'll get what you brought into the marriage, which was about $12,000 in student loan debt." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and the sound was harder than I'd intended. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you lied to me for months? Was it fair when you used our joint account to pay for hotel rooms? Was it fair when you told your lover that I was boring and you were dying inside?" Lauren winced at each question like I was slapping her. "I never meant for this to happen," she said, "but it did happen. And now you get to live with the consequences." "What about forgiveness? What about working through this together?" "There is no together. Not anymore. You ended that when you decided I wasn't enough." "I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every time you met him, every time you lied to me, every time you came home and pretended to be a loving wife, those were all choices." Lauren was crying harder now, her makeup running in black streaks down her cheeks. "What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore. Nick, please. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can't fix this. Some things can't be fixed." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our perfect suburban street. The houses with their perfect lawns and perfect families, all hiding their own secrets and lies. I loved you, I said without turning around. I would have done anything for you. But you threw it away for a man who couldn't even stick around when things got difficult. I know I was wrong. Being wrong implies a mistake. This was a betrayal. There's a difference. I turned back to face her. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. The divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. You can keep your clothes and your jewelry. Everything else stays here. Nick, please. There's nothing left to say, Lauren. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Lauren? The next time you decide to have an affair, make sure your partner isn't a criminal. The IRS is very interested in Ethan's financial records. They might want to talk to you, too. I left her sitting in our living room, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal. By the time I returned from my walk, she was gone. She'd taken a suitcase and left everything else behind, including her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Sunday passed in strange silence. The house felt different without Lauren's presence. Not empty, but somehow cleaner. I spent the day boxing up her remaining belongings, each item a reminder of what we'd once been. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to my lawyer's office. The divorce papers were already prepared, the prenup reviewed and validated. Lauren would get nothing beyond what she'd earned herself, which wasn't much. She could contest it, my lawyer warned, claim emotional duress or try to invalidate the prenup. Let her try. I have enough evidence to bury her in court. This is pretty comprehensive, he said, reviewing my documentation. Where did you get all this? I'm very thorough. Tuesday brought a call from Claire. She sounded tired but satisfied, the voice of someone who'd completed a difficult task. It's over, she said. Ethan's business is finished. The IRS froze his accounts, his partners are suing him, and he's facing criminal charges for fraud. Where is he now? Somewhere in Florida, apparently. Living in a motel and working at a chain restaurant. Claire's sister saw him on Facebook. He looks terrible. Good. What about Lauren? She's staying with her sister. I hear she's looking for a new job. Her old firm let her go quietly. They don't want to be associated with the scandal. So we won. We survived. That's not the same thing, but it felt like winning. It felt like justice. Wednesday brought an unexpected visitor. Jill Myers stood on my doorstep, looking uncomfortable and slightly afraid. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in, curious about what Lauren's former best friend had to say. I owe you an apology, she said once we were seated. I knew about the affair. I knew and I didn't tell you. Why not? Because I was angry with you. You had what I wanted. A stable marriage, a nice house, a husband who came home every night. I thought you deserved to suffer a little. But watching Lauren destroy herself made me realize something. I don't want to be the kind of person who enables destruction. Interesting timing for that revelation. Jill flinched. I know how it sounds, but I'm trying to make things right. By apologizing to me? What about apologizing to your best friend? Lauren's not my best friend anymore. She hasn't been for months. The affair changed her, made her into someone I didn't recognize. Someone selfish and cruel. I studied Jill's face, looking for deception, but she seemed genuine, broken down by guilt and regret. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. I just wanted you to know that not everyone was against you. Some of us saw what was happening and hated ourselves for not stopping it. After Jill left, I sat in my empty house and thought about forgiveness. Not for Lauren. That ship had sailed. But for the people caught in the wreckage. The friends who'd known but stayed silent. The co-workers who'd whispered but never warned me. The community that had watched my marriage implode like entertainment. Maybe forgiveness was possible for them, but not yet. Thursday brought a call from my lawyer with news that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Lauren's attorney called, he said. She wants to negotiate. What's her offer? She'll accept the terms of the prenup in exchange for your silence about the affair. No public statements, no social media posts, no discussing the details with mutual friends. And if I refuse? She'll drag this out in court, claim emotional mistreatment, try to paint you as a controlling husband who drove her to seek comfort elsewhere. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Counteroffer, she takes the prenup terms, I keep my mouth shut, and she leaves town. Permanently. That's harsh. So was adultery. Friday afternoon, my lawyer called back with Lauren's response. She'd accepted the terms. She would be moving to Portland, where her sister lived, starting fresh with a new job and a new life. away from Camden Hills, away from the whispers and stares, away from me. She wanted me to give you a message, he said. She says she's sorry and she hopes you can find happiness. Tell her I already have. Saturday morning, I drove to Jake's gym for the last time. My brother was working with a new student, a kid who reminded me of myself at that age. Skinny, uncertain, afraid of his own shadow. You look better, Jake said when we were alone. More like yourself. I feel like myself. So what now? You gonna stay in that big house all alone? For a while, then maybe I'll sell it, move somewhere new, start over. Sounds lonely. Sounds peaceful. We worked out together, and I felt strong in a way that had nothing to do with muscles. The anger that had driven me for weeks was fading, replaced by something calmer, but no less determined. You know what the funny thing is? I said as we finished up. I thought I was getting revenge, but really I was just telling the truth. Everything that happened to them was a direct result of their own choices. That's the best kind of revenge, Jake said. The kind that doesn't require you to become someone you're not. Sunday evening, I stood in my backyard and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of possibility. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be Lauren, breaking her promise to stay away, but the message was from Claire. Thank you, it said, for helping me find my strength. I typed back, thank you for helping me find mine. Monday morning, I went back to work for the first time in weeks. My colleagues were awkward around me, unsure how to act around a man whose private life had become public entertainment. But I didn't care. Their discomfort wasn't my problem. I threw myself into a new project, a complex piece of software that required all my attention and skill. It felt good to use my mind for creation instead of destruction, to build something instead of tearing it down. Tuesday brought an unexpected email from Lauren's sister in Portland. She wanted me to know that Lauren was struggling but getting help, seeing a therapist, trying to understand how she'd become someone capable of such betrayal. She asked me to tell you that she knows she can't undo what she did, the email read, but she wants you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of her life. I deleted the email without responding. Lauren's regret was her burden to carry, not mine to absolve. Wednesday evening, I was cleaning out the last of Lauren's belongings when I found a photo album I'd forgotten about. Our wedding pictures, vacation photos, snapshots of happier times when we'd believed in forever. I flipped through the pages, studying the faces of two people who'd thought they knew what love was. We'd been so young, so certain that good intentions were enough to sustain a marriage. We'd never imagined that love could curdle into resentment, that intimacy could breed contempt, that the person you trusted most could become the one who hurt you deepest. But I wasn't bitter anymore. I was grateful. Grateful that Lauren's betrayal had shown me who I really was, had forced me to find strength I didn't know I possessed. Grateful that I'd learned the difference between justice and revenge, between consequences and cruelty. I closed the album and put it in the donation box with the rest of her things. Someone else could use those memories now. Thursday brought news from the private investigator I'd hired. Ethan had been arrested in Florida on charges related to his business fraud. The evidence Claire and I had compiled had led to a federal investigation that uncovered years of financial crimes. He's looking at serious jail time, the investigator told me. The IRS doesn't mess around with tax evasion, especially when it's tied to other criminal activity. I felt a flicker of the old satisfaction, but it was muted now. Ethan's downfall was no longer about my need for revenge. It was about justice for everyone he'd defrauded over the years. Friday afternoon, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called Claire and asked if she wanted to have dinner, not as co-conspirators in revenge, but as two people who'd survived a similar trauma and come out stronger. I'd like that, she said. But fair warning, I'm not the same person I was a few weeks ago. Neither am I. Maybe that's not a bad thing. We met at a restaurant across town, somewhere we could talk without running into anyone from our old lives. Claire looked different, stronger, more confident, like she'd shed a skin that no longer fit. Any regrets? She asked over dessert. About the divorce? No. About how we handled things, sometimes? You think we went too far? I think we did what we had to do, but I also think we're better people than our actions suggested. Speak for yourself. I enjoyed every minute of watching Ethan's world burn. And now? Claire was quiet for a moment, considering. Now I feel empty, not sad, just empty. Like I used up all my anger and now I don't know what to feel. Maybe that's good. Maybe empty is better than full of rage. Maybe. We talked for hours, two damaged people trying to make sense of what we'd been through. By the time we said goodbye in the parking lot, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Saturday morning, I woke up in my empty house and realized I wasn't lonely anymore. I was alone, but that was different. Loneliness was about missing something you'd lost. Being alone was about appreciating something you'd found, yourself. I spent the day doing things I enjoyed: reading, cooking, working in the garden Lauren had always complained was too much trouble. Simple pleasures that felt revolutionary after months of conflict and deception. Sunday evening, I got a call from my lawyer with the final paperwork. The divorce was official, the house was mine, and Lauren was officially out of my life forever. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free?" Monday marked 3 months since I'd found that cologne bottle in the laundry room. 3 months since my world had imploded and rebuilt itself into something stronger. I was a different person now. Not harder, exactly, but more aware of my own worth. I'd learned that love without respect was just emotion, that trust once broken couldn't be repaired with apologies, that sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was let them face the consequences of their choices. I'd also learned that I was capable of things I'd never imagined, not just the calculated destruction of my wife's affair, but the disciplined rebuilding of my own life. I was stronger than I'd thought, smarter than I'd believed, and more resilient than I'd ever had to be. Tuesday brought an unexpected visitor. Lauren stood on my doorstep looking nothing like the confident woman who'd left for her fake yoga retreat months ago. She was thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and difficult truths. "I know I'm not supposed to be here," she said, "but I couldn't leave without trying one more time." "There's nothing to try, Lauren. It's over." I know it's over. But I need you to understand something." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch where we'd had our final confrontation, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've been in therapy," she said, "trying to understand how I became someone capable of what I did. And I realized something. I didn't have an affair because I stopped loving you. I had an affair because I stopped loving myself. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses what I did. But I wanted you to know that it was never about you not being enough. It was about me not knowing who I was." I looked at this woman I'd once loved, once trusted, once planned to grow old with. I felt pity for her, but not love. That had died somewhere between the lies and the betrayal. "I hope you figure it out," I said. "I hope you find yourself and learn to be happy with who you are. But that's not my responsibility anymore." "I know." She stood up, smoothing down her skirt with the nervous hands. "I just wanted you to know that losing you taught me something. It taught me that actions have consequences, that you can't undo the damage you cause, that some mistakes are too big to forgive. Then you learned something valuable." She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be happy." I already am. After she left, I sat in my living room and thought about closure. This had been it. Our final conversation, the last chapter of a story that had started with love and ended with lessons. I felt no anger, no sadness, no regret, just a quiet satisfaction that we'd both said what needed to be said. Wednesday evening, Claire called with news that made me smile. "I got a job offer," she said. "In Denver, fresh start, new city, chance to be someone other than Ethan's ex-wife. Are you going to take it?" "Already did. I start next month." "Congratulations. What about you? Any plans for the future?" "A few. I'm thinking about taking that consulting job in Seattle. Maybe it's time for my own fresh start." Maybe we both deserve happy endings. Maybe we do. Thursday morning, I gave my 2 weeks' notice at work. My boss was disappointed, but not surprised. Everyone knew I'd been through heck, and nobody blamed me for wanting a change. The consulting job in Seattle was perfect for someone with my skills and experience. More money, more freedom, more opportunity to build something new. I'd be working with startups and tech companies, solving problems instead of maintaining systems. Friday afternoon, I put my house on the market. The realtor was optimistic about a quick sale. Camden Hills was still a desirable neighborhood, and the house was in perfect condition thanks to Lauren's obsessive maintenance standards. Any particular reason you're leaving? She asked as we discussed the listing. Time for a change. She nodded like that was explanation enough. Maybe it was. Saturday morning, I drove to Jake's gym one last time. My brother was working with the same kid I'd noticed weeks ago, who looked stronger now, more confident in his own skin. "So you're really doing this," Jake said when we were alone. "Moving across the country, starting over." "Why not? I've got nothing keeping me here." "You've got me. You'll visit. Seattle's not that far." "It's not about distance, Nick. It's about running away." I considered that. Maybe. But sometimes running away is the smartest thing you can do. Sometimes staying is just another way of being stuck. Jake studied my face with the intensity that had made him good at reading opponents. "You look like you've made peace with it." "I have." "Then I'm happy for you." Sunday evening, I sat in my backyard one last time, watching the sunset paint the sky in familiar colors. Tomorrow I would start packing, begin the process of dismantling a life that no longer fit. I thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago. Naive, trusting, willing to ignore red flags in the name of keeping the peace. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder but not bitter, stronger but not cruel. I'd learned that love wasn't enough to save a marriage, that trust once broken couldn't be rebuilt, that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was let someone face the consequences of their choices. But I'd also learned that I was capable of surviving anything, that I was stronger than I'd believed, that I could build a new life from the ashes of the old one. Monday morning, the moving truck arrived. As I watched strangers box up my possessions, I felt no sadness, no regret, just anticipation for what came next. The house sold within a week, to a young couple who reminded me of Lauren and myself when we'd first moved in, full of hope and plans and certainty that love would be enough. I wanted to warn them, to tell them that marriage was harder than they imagined, that people could change in ways you never expected. But I didn't. They'd have to learn their own lessons, make their own mistakes, find their own strength. 2 weeks later, I was in Seattle, standing in an empty apartment with a view of the Sound. The consulting job was everything I'd hoped for, challenging, rewarding, focused on building instead of maintaining. I unpacked my belongings slowly, thoughtfully, keeping only what served my new life. The photo albums went into storage. The wedding ring went into a drawer. The memories stayed in Camden Hills, where they belonged. Claire called on my first day of work. "How's the new city?" she asked. "Perfect. How's Denver?" "Liberating. I feel like I can breathe again." "Any regrets?" "None." "You?" "None." We talked for an hour, two survivors comparing notes on recovery. By the time we hung up, I felt connected to someone in a way I hadn't since before everything fell apart. 6 months later, I was a different person entirely. The consulting work was thriving, I'd made new friends, and I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinner and conversation with people who didn't know my history. The anger was gone, replaced by something calmer but no less determined. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value my own worth, to demand honesty from the people in my life. I got occasional updates about Lauren through mutual friends. She was still in Portland, still in therapy, still trying to rebuild a life she destroyed with her own choices. I felt no satisfaction in her struggles, no vindication in her loneliness. Her suffering was her own responsibility now. Ethan had been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for tax evasion and fraud. He'd serve maybe 3 with good behavior, then emerge into a world that had moved on without him. Justice, not revenge. 1 year after finding that cologne bottle, I stood on my apartment balcony watching the sunset over Elliott Bay. The water was calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. I thought about the man I'd been, the marriage I'd lost, the life I'd rebuilt. I'd survived betrayal, divorce, and the systematic destruction of everything I'd thought I wanted. I'd learned that love without respect was worthless, that trust once broken couldn't be repaired, that sometimes the cruelest thing you could do was enable someone's self-destruction. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I'd imagined, more resilient than I'd believed, more capable of happiness than I'd dared to hope. The old Nick would have taken Lauren back, would have gone to counseling, would have spent years trying to rebuild something that had been poisoned beyond repair. The new Nick knew better. Some bridges were meant to be burned. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. 1 year anniversary of our liberation. How are you celebrating? I typed back, by being grateful. For what? For learning who I really am. And I was grateful. grateful for the pain that had taught me strength, for the betrayal that had revealed my worth, for the destruction that had forced me to rebuild better. I'd thought Lauren's affair was the end of my story. Instead, it had been the beginning. The cologne bottle was long gone, thrown away with the rest of the evidence, but the lessons remained, the strength remained, the knowledge that I could survive anything, overcome anything, rebuild anything. I was no longer the man who'd been betrayed. I was the man who'd survived betrayal. There was a difference, and it made all the difference in the world. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of redemption. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove what I learned about myself. I was ready for all of it.